Hey guys, today we're going to take a look at solving inequalities. So up until this point, we have only solved equations. So an example of that would be something like 2x equals negative 8. And to solve that, I would divide both sides by 2, and x equals negative 4. Well, the reason I wanted to point this out is if I were to graph that solution, it would simply be a dot on a number line. So I have negative 4, and that means that only that number solves that equation. Well, in inequalities, we have what's called a solution set, because a set of numbers will solve these equations. So first, let's take a look at how we would graph those. So in inequalities, we have less than or equal to, greater than, or greater than or equal to. So let's write that in. Less than or equal to, greater than, and then greater than or equal to. So on a number line, the way we show this, less than, we would have an open circle, and then we would shade to the left, or we would shade all of the values that are less than the number that we get. When we look at less than or equal to, we would actually create a closed dot because that number is also a solution or a part of that solution set. And then we would shade the number line to the left, less is left, because all of those values would make that inequality true. Then if we simply have greater than, we would have an open circle, and we would shade the number line to the right because to the right is greater than. And then finally, for greater than or equal to, you would plot a closed circle because that number is part of the solution set, and then you would shade all the values to the right. And then to actually solve these inequalities, you follow the same exact steps that you would use for solving equations. However, let's put a note here. Note, if you multiply or divide for the last step, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, for the last step, this is the important part, flip the inequality sign. And again, I'm just giving you some information before we actually do this. So one more time, if you multiply or divide by a negative number for the last step, then you want to flip the inequality sign. So let's do a few examples. We're actually going to solve them and graph them for this lesson. So let's look at example 1. Example 1 has 3x is greater than or equal to negative 15. Well, I solved these exactly the same as I did before. So I split my inequality at the sign. I find the x. And I notice that I need to divide both sides by 3. So I'm left with x is greater than or equal to negative 5. Now here, did I divide by a negative number? No. Even though my answer is negative, that I didn't divide by a negative number, so I don't need to flip my inequality sign. Now let's talk about how we're going to graph this. I always like 3 data points. I like to put the actual answer in the middle, one number less than, and one number greater than. Okay, and then I'm going to graph my solution. So negative 15, this is going to be a closed dot because it has the line under it. That's how I remember it. And greater than is to the right. And if you'll notice, the arrow is pointing, as long as the letter is on the left, as long as the letter's first, the arrow points in the direction that you need to graph. So let's look at example 2. So for example 2, we're going to do negative 5x is less than 30. So I want to split this at the inequality symbol. I find my variable, and I need to divide both sides by negative 5. So I have x. Did I divide or multiply by a negative number? Yes, I did. So I'm going to flip my inequality sign, and 30 divided by negative 5 is negative 6. So now I'm going to graph my solution set. Remember, I want 3 data points, or 3 numbers on your number line. The number, then the one before, and the one after. Okay, so there's no line under that greater than, so I want an open circle, and greater than is to the right. So I'm going to shade all my values to the right of negative 6. Example 3. So let's say we have x divided by negative 2 is greater than, is greater than 9. Split your inequality at the symbol. Here I notice that I need to multiply both sides by negative 2. So x, since I multiplied by a negative number, I need to flip my symbol. And 9 times negative 2 is negative 18. So x is less than negative 18 is my solution. So now I'm going to graph that. Negative 18, negative 19, negative 17. And there's no line under it, so I want an open circle. And less than is to the left. So I want to shade my number line going to the left. Okay, now let's do a couple of two-step equations. Just to practice making sure. Here's the key with inequalities. Always for that last step, ask, do I need to flip my sign? That's the big thing with these. So let's take a look at negative 2x plus 5 is less than or equal to 13. So I split up my symbol, my inequality sign. Find my variable, because that's what I do the opposite of, is those numbers. So first I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. I'm left with negative 2x is less than or equal to 13 minus 5 is 8. And if you need to, keep finding your variable. Now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. So x is, did I divide by a negative? Yes, I did. So I need to flip my symbol. So x is greater than or equal to negative 4. So let's graph that solution set. So I have negative 4. The one before, or to the left, is negative 5, negative 3. So next, do I need an open or a closed circle? Well, there's a line under it, so it needs to be closed because it includes that number, and greater than is to the right. So I'm going to shade all the values to the right of negative 4. And last but not least, let's try something that you may encounter. It may look a little different, but you really do it the same way. But you have to take your time and make sure that you write it the correct way. So let's say I have negative 38 is greater than or equal to 9x. Oops, sorry about that, guys. My pen likes going crazy sometimes. Is greater than or equal to 9x minus 2. Well, yes, we solved this the same way, but here's the deal. We can either flip it now, our inequality, or we can flip it at any point, actually. I like to do it in the beginning. So here's what you have to notice. If I flip the 9x minus 2 and the negative 38, you have to make sure that you point that inequality sign the correct way. So my inequality sign, the small part's pointing at the 9x minus 2, so I want to make sure that it's pointing to the 9x minus 2 over here. Now I do it just like normal. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So 9x is less than or equal to negative 38 plus 2 is negative 36. If you need to highlight that variable, go ahead. It's just an organization strategy. So now I need to divide both sides by 9. So x is less than or equal to negative 36 divided by 9 is negative 4. Did I divide by a negative? No, I didn't. I divided by a positive 9, so I don't flip my sign. So x is less than or equal to negative 4. And now let's graph this inequality or solution set. So I have negative 4. And then I decide, do I need an open or a closed circle? Well, the line's under it, so it's going to be closed. X is less than is to the left. So I shade my values to the left of that solution.